6 after 1. Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2 underway. It's Saturday afternoon, Labor Day weekend, second day of September. You've got the original Solid Gold weekend. We're here till 6, playing all those great songs from rock and roll's first 3 decades, the 50s, 60s, and the 70s. I'm Warren Lawrence. As always, request lines are open right now, 331-1490. Sunshine this afternoon, high near 70 overnight, turning cloudy, showers likely after midnight, low in the mid-50s. Tomorrow, rain through mid-afternoon, then a chance of showers. High in the mid-60s, chance of showers tomorrow evening. Otherwise, clouds overnight, low 56. Sunny on Labor Day with a high of 83. Partly sunny right now. It's 64 degrees in Midtown Kingston. Here was 1969. That was one of those two-sided vinyl hit records. The flip side, the bigger, the A-side, Atlantis by Donovan. That was the flip side. Made the top 40, though. And to Susan on the West Coast waiting as we open up the 1 o'clock hour. It is 10 minutes after 1. I'm Warren Lawrence. You've got the original Solid Gold weekend here on the Kingston station. Up next, a pop group from England who were much, much more successful in their native Great Britain, but they did have one classic hit here in the United States that sold 1 million copies. Back in 1968, here's the band Status Quo and Pictures of Matchstick Men. Heading back to 1960, a classic from the great Bobby Rydell, one of those great South Philadelphia stars. So many great rock and roll singers came from that part of the country. Bobby Rydell off my request line. Come on and sway me. 16 after 1 o'clock. Taking your requests right now on the radio, 331-1490. If you've got something you'd like to hear from the 50s, 60s, or the 70s, rock and roll's first and greatest decades, give us a shout right now. We'll take care of that for you. From 1972, here's Bill Withers. 1966, the Vogues in This Magic Town. 24 after 1, the original Solid Gold weekend. Thanks for joining me on the radio as we make memories, bring back all those great songs from rock and roll's first 3 decades. Every Saturday afternoon, playing those songs you haven't heard in so many years and taking your requests as well. Again, pop singer Diane Renee with us in just a couple of minutes. My special guest should be dropping by. Diane Renee, best known for her hits Kiss Me Sailor and Navy Blue back in the 1960s. We'll see what she's up to these days. She'll be with us shortly at 1:30. Then later on this afternoon, actor and singer and game show host John Davidson with us. He's had quite a career. He's still performing, and we'll chat with John. He'll be with us at 3:30 later on this afternoon. Right now from 1972, number 1 it was for Three Dog Nights. Here's Black and White. It was 1964, a classic rock and roll memory from that year. It's Diane Renee and Blue Navy Blue, her first and biggest hit record. We're delighted to have Diane with us this afternoon to chat for a few minutes. And Diane, thanks so much for calling in, and how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
And we love that song. That's one of those timeless songs that just seems to last forever, and no one ever really gets tired of hearing that, and I'm sure you don't get tired of performing it.
The song just brings back so many memories to me when I hear it, you know. It's like when I hear it, it's hard for me to believe that I did that, to associate myself with that.
Right. So you accomplished something amazing, in my opinion, Diane, because that song was climbing the charts in early 1964 when so were the Beatles and all those British acts, and you came along at a time that was difficult to break in if you were not a British star, a British act, and you accomplished that.
Yes, it was a miracle. It really was. I remember I was up at William Morris Talent Agency in New York, and this was before the Beatles even came to the United States. The whole office was talking about the Beatles. The Beatles are coming. So it was a pretty big deal back then.
And when you recorded that song, you were still a teenager, as most of those artists of your era were. And you grew up in that great part of South Philadelphia where so many great pop stars came from.
I was born in South Philly, and I lived there until I was 9, and then we moved to a different part of Philadelphia. But I have a lot of memories of South Philly.
So, Diane, did you have this idea that you wanted to be a pop singer growing up? Did you love music?
I started singing from the time I was able to talk. And by the time I was 12, I started taking singing lessons in Philadelphia with a man named Artie Singer, who taught Bobby Rydell and a lot of other people. In fact, he managed Danny and the Juniors. Mm-hmm. And he told me that when I get a little older, that I should cut a record. That's all I had to hear. So from that moment on, I just drove my parents crazy through the years that I wanted to cut a record.
Your parents had a pretty successful retail store in Philadelphia.
They had a jewelry store in Philadelphia, yes.
And did that jewelry store and the folks who came into the store have anything to do with your career?
Well, my father had one customer whose first cousin was record producer Pete DeAngelis, who produced Al Martino and Frankie Avalon and a lot of other well-known artists. And my father asked his customer one day, "Do you think you could arrange for my daughter to meet Pete DeAngelis? I'd like to see if she has the talent to pursue a record career." So he arranged this meeting, and one Sunday my parents drove me to New Jersey, where Pete DeAngelis lived, and he played piano, and I sang for him. And he turned around to my parents and he said, "I think she has a great voice and I can get her a record deal." And he produced my first record session, which was the remake of the old song Little White Lies, which came out on the Atco record label.
Do you remember the song that you sang for him when your parents took you to him that day?
No. I did a couple of standards for him.
So you recorded Little White Lies and a song called Tender as well. What happened with those? Did that go anywhere for you?
Tender was my second release, and actually Atco called in record producer Bob Crew, who produced the Four Seasons and many other big artists, who produced a session for me. He even co-wrote the song Tender. And it hit the charts here and there throughout the country, but it didn't make enough noise for the record companies to keep my contract, so they let me go. So Bob Crew said to my father, "I think I can really do something for Diane. I'd like to put her under contract myself," and we agreed. And my next song out was Navy Blue.
And what a success that was. That must have kind of sent you reeling.
Yes, it was. I came home, I was in high school, and I came home from school one day, and the phone rings, and it's Bob Crew, and he says to me, "Sit down, I have to tell you something." I said, "What?" He says, "You have a hit record, and you'll never guess which song it is, because it was a single with two sides to it." He says, "Navy Blue," because they went out on the flip side of Navy Blue, called Unbelievable Guy, is the A side. And there was this disc jockey in Worcester, Massachusetts, I believe his name was Dick Smith, who flipped the record because he liked Navy Blue, and he started to play it, and it just took off like a domino effect throughout the country.
So where'd the idea for the Navy Blue song come from, and who wrote that?
Bob Crew, Eddie Rambeau, and Bud Rehak. And what happened there, I was up, it was the summer, and I was up in the mountains on vacation with my parents, and I got a phone call from Bob Crew's office, "You got to come into New York because they're writing songs for your next session." So I take a bus and I go to New York, and I walk into Bob Crew's office, and he's in a small room with a piano with Eddie Rambeau and Bud Rehak sitting at the piano. And he says to them, "I have this title in my mind for so long, Navy Blue, Navy Blue. What can we do with Navy Blue?" As he's pacing back and forth across the floor. So Bud Rehak starts tapping out dum, da-dum, dum, da-dum on the piano, and within 20 minutes they wrote the song. And when we went into the studio to record, that was the last song that we recorded. It was like a throwaway song. So it was not done intentionally. It was an accident.
Wow. And doesn't it happen that way so often? I hear so many stories how my biggest hit was a throwaway that we didn't anticipate to be a hit record.
Right. Well, that happens, yeah.
It does, it does.
You don't know what a hit record is. You really don't know.
We have Diane Renee with us. Diane, of course, most famous for Blue Navy Blue. Her follow-up, Kiss Me Sailor, another great hit record for Diane back in the early 60s. As we said, she emerged at the time the Beatles hit record, I Want to Hold Your Hand, was climbing to #1, and Navy Blue was right behind it, doing very well. Do you remember, Diane, what it was like for you watching that song climb the chart? Were you getting nervous?
Actually, it was like disbelief, and I couldn't connect myself to the song when I would hear it on the radio. It was like I'm listening to somebody else. You know, it was like an unbelievable feeling. I mean, I knew it was me, but it was really like a shock. but every time I would hear it on the radio, I would be like shocked. That's all I can say.
And of course, that theme was popular back in the 60s. The Shirelles had their big hit with Soldier Boy, and there was Blue Navy Blue and several others that were similar.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Well, it was during the Vietnam War, so I guess there were a lot of songs that would have pertained to the situation.
So did you tour to promote the song a lot? Were you on TV, a lot of performances?
I did a lot of TV shows. I did a lot of shows. In fact, one show I did in San Antonio, Texas, called the Teen Fair for 3 days. The Rolling Stones made their first American appearance on the show that I was performing at. And the promoters of the show came to me and they said to me, we'd like you to go by limousine to the airport to greet the Rolling Stones when they get off the plane, and you'll all come back to the show. So I got in the limousine and they drove me to the airport, and the Rolling Stones came off the plane and they got into the car, and I said, welcome to the United States, and we all went back to the show, and we were all performing there. And after the show was over, at the last time, we had a big party, and there's a picture on my website of me with the original Rolling Stones.
Wow, that must have been pretty exciting for you.
Yeah, it was.
So you changed your name. A lot of folks did that back in the 60s. How did you come up with your name?
Well, Diane is actually my middle name, and Renee is my first name. I just switched them around.
You switched them around.
Yeah.
Was that your idea?
No. It was the record company's idea.
Right. We have Diane Renee with us this afternoon. We're chatting with her about her wonderful career. So we didn't hear from you for a while, and you've come back. So what brought you back into the limelight?
Well, I'm not performing anymore. I do have a website. I have a couple of CDs that are out there. One CD is the Navy Blue CD called 25 Super Tracks. It has a lot of other songs on it that were never released before. And then I put out a double CD with a lot of songs that I recorded throughout the 80s that were never released, some really great songs. So I have them out online. They can be bought at cdbaby.com, iTunes, Amazon. They're out there.
So Diane, your follow-up to Navy Blue wasn't as quite successful, but a great song called Kiss Me Sailor. So whose idea was it to keep that theme going?
Well, that was in my album, my Navy Blue album, and the record company just decided to release it as a second follow-up because it was like Navy Blue Chapter 2.
Exactly. And, if you go to YouTube, you can see all kinds of live performances with Diane, including a live performance of Kiss Me Sailor that you must have done on a TV show. So the guy that was the sailor in that performance, was that your guy? Or that was
you know what? I don't know who he was. It was somebody that they hired.
Okay, I thought maybe it was your boyfriend or something
at
the time. To make it all real,
Right.
So you have a website. It's DianeRenee.com. Our listeners can check that out. Check out the CDs, Some Things Old and Some Things New. So you're not performing anymore. Any feeling that you might want to come back to the performing world again?
I don't think so. It's rough. Traveling is not something that I like to do. It's very, very difficult. I mean, just live in hotel rooms and airplanes, and it's a very difficult life. I mean, when I was young, I had the energy to do it, but at this point in my life,
It's not the thing for you, right?
No, not anymore.
But isn't it great to look back at this wonderful career? And did you become friends with a lot of the pop stars at the time?
I became good friends with Linda Scott. She had that song, I Told Every Little Star.
Sure.
We actually became roommates for a while in New York City. I really didn't get to know too many of the other artists that I performed with. Everybody more or less came, sang their songs, and kept to themselves.
Are you still in touch with Linda Scott?
No, I'm not. I haven't been in touch with her since the 60s.
Wow. Well, it's great to look back, and you certainly were a big part of rock and roll history in that time period back in the 60s, with a few classic songs, especially the Blue Navy Blue that is still played so much on the radio today on stations like ours. And, it's great to keep that music alive, isn't it, and remember it?
Yeah, it is. It's really great, the oldies. I listen to it on the radio when I'm in the car, the oldie stations, and when I hear certain songs, they take me back to my my teen years growing up, even before I started singing.
Well, it's a delight to have you with us. We're so glad you could stop by to chat for a few minutes, Diane, and we still love playing your music on the radio. And congratulations on everything you've done.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Great to have you with us. Appreciate you calling in.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Have a good day now.
Okay, bye-bye.
And let's take you back to 1964 with that great follow-up to Blue Navy Blue. It's Diane Renee and Kiss Me Sailor. 1964, Diane Renee and Kiss Me Sailor. We thank Diane for stopping by to talk with us a few minutes this afternoon. 14 away from 2. News on the way, top of the hour. Next hour, it's our rock and roll flashback. We'll take you back to Labor Day weekend. This day in 1965, countdown to top 15 songs on Billboard's Top 100. Also coming up next hour, another chance to win on Name That Oldie. Right now, the year was 1969, a one-hit wonder group called the Youngbloods. Here's Get Together. Diana Ross and the Supremes playing with the stars. 1969, no matter what sign you are. 5 away from 2 on the Kingston station. 1965, it's Gary Lewis and the Playboys. It is 2 o'clock. You're listening to 1490 WKNY, Kingston, New York. The latest world and national news is next from CBS.